Don't lecture my kids, get your own, his wife screamed. He just smiled and said, all right. What he did next makes her cry. Don't lecture my kids, you're not their father. If you want to be a dad so badly, go get your own. Those were the venomous words Jessica Bennett screamed at her husband Aaron, as she stood in the custom-built dining room he'd crafted with his own hands, pointing an accusatory finger at the man who had rescued her from financial ruin and treated her children like his own blood for 2 years. She had no idea that the quiet master carpenter sitting across from her possessed the patience of a demolition expert and had already begun calculating the most devastating lesson about consequences and gratitude that any ungrateful family had ever received. What he did next will make you question everything you think you know about kindness, manipulation, and the difference between being generous and being a fool. Viewers, have you ever given someone everything, your heart, your home, your hard-earned money, only to have them throw it back in your face with cruel laughter? How far would you go to teach them what they'd lost? Drop your thoughts in the comments. The dinner plate still held traces of the lasagna Aaron had prepared himself. Extra cheese, browned at the edges, just the way Eli and Noah had always begged for. The kitchen smelled of garlic, butter, and the basil clipped fresh from Aaron's garden that afternoon. Normally it was the kind of meal that softened tempers, that coaxed a family into easy conversation. Tonight, the warmth was brittle, ready to shatter. Both of you, sit down. Aaron's voice wasn't loud, but it carried the quiet command of a man who'd overseen crews and machinery for 3 decades. He didn't need to shout. Authority was in his stance, the steady weight of his gaze. Eli, 12, flopped into his chair with a sigh so theatrical it almost rattled the silverware. Noah, 10, crossed his arms, his lips pressed into a stubborn line. We didn't do anything wrong, Eli muttered, his dark bangs sliding into his eyes that reminded Aaron too much of their mother, sharp, defiant, unwilling to bend. Aaron pulled the folded paper from his shirt pocket and set it on the table. Lincoln Academy called me, fighting in the hallway, skipping class, smoking behind the gymnasium. He looked directly at Noah. You're 10 years old. 10. And you think cigarettes make you a man? Noah lifted his chin. So what? You can't tell us what to do. His voice cracked on the last word, a child trying to wear the armor of rebellion. The words landed harder than Aaron expected. He felt them in his ribs, heavy, but he kept his tone calm, deliberate. I'm not here to control you. I'm here to teach you that choices have consequences. When you fight, when you disrespect your teachers, it doesn't just stain your name. It stains this whole family. It stains your mother, who works hard. Don't you dare lecture my kids. Jessica's voice cut through the room like shattering glass. She stood framed in the doorway, blonde hair immaculately styled from the salon Aaron had paid for that morning, her silk blouse and tailored skirt looking as though they'd stepped straight out of a magazine spread. Her green eyes, usually calculated and cool, blazed with fury. Aaron rose slowly, his chair scraping against the oak floor he had sanded and sealed with his own hands. Excuse me? You heard me. Jessica strode in, her heels clacking against the hardwood. Don't lecture my kids. You think because you pay for some fancy school you get to play daddy? If you want to be a dad so badly, go get your own. Behind her, the boys perked up, grins stretching wide, emboldened by the sudden shield of maternal rage. Yeah, Eli shot up from his chair, triumphant. You're not our real dad. Noah, emboldened, chimed in, a giggle bubbling from his throat. Our real dad would never be this boring. Aaron felt something shift inside him. Not his heart, not a break. Something deeper, structural, like a joist snapping beneath the weight it was never meant to bear. 2 years of effort, bedtime stories, fishing trips, woodworking lessons in the garage, all those bricks of trust he'd laid by hand now crumbled into dust. Jessica closed the distance, her perfume sharp and cloying. If you want to be a father so badly, she spat, then get your own kids. Stop trying to replace what you lost with mine. The silence afterward was suffocating. The kitchen seemed suddenly foreign to Aaron, too polished, too staged. He heard the grandfather clock ticking from the hallway, the faint hum of the refrigerator, the distant whisper of traffic beyond walls he had insulated to perfection. All the details of a home he had built with love, now echoing with contempt. And then Aaron smiled. It wasn't warmth. It wasn't sadness. It was the smile of a craftsman surveying a structure he thought was solid, only to discover the foundation was rotten clear through. A smile that came when you realized demolition was not only necessary, it was inevitable. He sat back down, folded his hands, and studied Jessica and the boys with new eyes. They thought they had won, that they had finally drawn blood. They didn't understand. Aaron had built skyscrapers from dirt, homes from empty lots, entire neighborhoods from rubble. He knew better than anyone. When a foundation failed, you didn't patch it. You tore it down, brick by brick, beam by beam, slowly, methodically, until nothing remained but the clean earth beneath. Aaron climbed the stairs with a heaviness in his legs, every step echoing through the house he had built 17 years earlier. The oak banister was smooth beneath his hand, polished with years of use, every joint set by his own meticulous touch. To anyone else, it was a beautiful house. To Aaron, it was a mausoleum. He stopped outside the nursery. The door had never been repainted. The walls inside still glowed faintly yellow, the cheerful shade he and Tracy had chosen together. They hadn't wanted to know the baby's gender. Let it be a surprise. Tracy had laughed, pressing his hand against the swell of her belly. But the surprise had been death. Aaron pushed the memory back, though it lingered in the hall like a shadow. He moved into his bedroom and opened the drawer of his nightstand. Inside lay the battered leather journal, its spine frayed from years of being opened and closed with trembling hands. Tracy's handwriting, neat and full of flourishes, filled every page. Baby names, sketches of cribs, notes about birthday parties they would never celebrate. Aaron will be such an amazing father, one entry read. He builds everything with such care. Our child will grow up in a house made of hope. Hope. The word tasted bitter. He'd built the nursery, finished the house, worked 18-hour days to make sure everything was ready for the baby. And in a single night, it had all come undone. Tracy's scream splitting the air, the blue lights of the ambulance, the hospital's sterile corridors, bright and merciless, the doctor's flat voice. We lost them both. Aaron sat on the edge of the bed, Tracy's journal resting open across his knees. He'd lived alone in this house for almost a decade after that night. Every room carried her ghost. Every floorboard held an echo of what might have been. He had filled the silence with work, pouring his grief into blueprints and construction sites, raising homes for other people's families, while his own had been reduced to a grave and a headstone. 7 years of nothing but sawdust and solitude, until he met Jessica at Murphy's Diner on North Clark Street. She was working a double shift, balancing trays and wiping down tables, exhaustion etched into her face. Her boys, Eli and Noah, sat in a booth, bent over worksheets. Eli was guiding his younger brother through multiplication problems, his voice patient, his pencil tapping with authority. 3 weeks later, over late-night coffee, Jessica told Aaron her story. The father gone. No child support in 4 years. A mother working herself to the bone to keep her children clothed and fed. Aaron saw something in her eyes that reminded him of Tracy. Determination, even when the odds were unfair. And in her boys he saw a reflection of himself, not abandoned in the same way but carrying the weight of absence. He thought he could give them what he had been denied: stability, protection, a future. He fell in love not just with Jessica, but with the possibility of family. The wedding was small, almost rushed. Aaron added her to his insurance, gave her credit cards, paid for the boys' tuition at Lincoln Academy. He taught them how to sand wood in the garage, took them fishing on Lake Michigan, read them stories until they fell asleep. For 2 years, the house rang with laughter again. For 2 years, he thought the ghosts had finally gone quiet. But ghosts don't vanish. They linger. They wait. And tonight, Jessica's words had pulled them back into the open. Get your own kids. Aaron closed the journal, his hands trembling not with grief this time, but with clarity. Jessica thought she had struck the cruelest blow, reminding him of what he had lost. She had no idea that she had also given him strength. Because Aaron knew something about ghosts. You couldn't banish them by running away. You had to build something stronger in their place. Tomorrow, he promised himself, he would begin again. Not by patching cracks, not by pretending. He would start fresh, and this time he would choose every brick, every beam, with precision. Aaron woke at 5:30 a.m., same as every day for the past 30 years. The discipline was muscle memory. Rise before dawn, coffee black, boots on. But this morning, as the first light of Chicago crept through his blinds, something inside him was different. The fog had lifted. Where before there was hurt, now there was clarity. Jessica and the boys were still asleep when he left the house, their laughter from the night before echoing in his mind, sharp, mocking, merciless. He stepped into the crisp air, keys jangling in his calloused hand. Today was not about destruction, it was about preparation. And no builder rushed demolition. You took it down carefully, plank by plank, until the rotten structure could no longer stand. Aaron walked into his office at Bennett Construction. The staff greeted him warmly. He had always been more than just a boss. He was the builder who worked beside them, the man who knew everyone's first name, their birthdays, their children's ages. But today he worked in silence, moving paperwork across his desk with precision. He called his accountant mid-morning. I want all distributions rerouted, Aaron said evenly. Every cent I draw goes into the trust, no delays. Double-check beneficiaries. The accountant hesitated. Even Mrs. Bennett's access? Especially Mrs. Bennett's access. It was a small step. Jessica wouldn't even notice, not yet. But Aaron knew foundations didn't collapse in a single strike. You weakened them in stages. By noon, Aaron was at First National Bank. Margaret Jones, his private banker of 12 years, offered him tea as usual, but Aaron waved it off. Margaret, I need to adjust my accounts, he said, sliding a folder across her desk. Close the shared card. Freeze lines of credit in her name. Keep all notifications discreet. Margaret raised her brows. Should I expect a court order? Not yet. Aaron's voice was steel wrapped in calm. But you will. Jessica wouldn't get the text alert right away. He'd timed it. She would try to shop first. She always did after a fight, only to discover her lifeline cut. A craftsman's first cut had to be precise. That evening, Aaron returned home as though nothing had changed. Jessica greeted him with forced cheer, her eyes sparkling in the way they always did when she wanted something. The boys need new shoes. I'm taking them to the mall tomorrow. Aaron only nodded. Sounds good. Inside, his mind was already measuring the next beam to pull loose. The following day, while Jessica busied herself with her errands, Aaron drove across town to Lincoln Academy. Principal Harrison welcomed him into his office, walls lined with books and framed diplomas. I'm reconsidering my sponsorship, Aaron said calmly, sliding another letter across the desk. But for now, let's not make any hasty decisions. I'd like a full file on their behavior. Every incident, every note from teachers. Send copies to my office. Harrison looked surprised, but he agreed. Aaron smiled. He wouldn't pull funding yet. That would come later, when the timing cut deepest. First, he wanted evidence. Proof of the boys' chaos, the paper trail Jessica had chosen to ignore. Back at home that night, Jessica prattled about Nordstrom sales while the boys played video games too loud in the next room. She didn't notice Aaron slipping the school reports into his briefcase. She didn't see the faint curl at the corner of his mouth, as he thought of beams creaking under weight they could no longer hold. Jessica strolled through Nordstrom's children's department with the easy confidence of someone who never had to ask about price tags. Her arms were piled high with jeans, polo shirts, and a pair of gleaming sneakers Eli had been begging for. Noah would get the gaming headset he wanted too. Why not? Aaron made the money. Aaron always paid. At the counter, she swiped her black American Express card and gave the cashier a practiced smile. Declined. Jessica blinked. That's strange. Try it again. The cashier swiped slower. Declined. A flush crept up Jessica's neck. Customers were watching now. She forced a laugh and handed over her backup card, the Visa Aaron had given her, for emergencies. Declined. The cashier shifted uncomfortably. Ma'am, do you have another method of payment? Jessica's purse yielded only $17 in crumpled bills and some loose change. Not nearly enough for the $300 pile of merchandise in her arms. Humiliation burned her cheeks. She shoved the clothes onto the counter and walked out briskly, her heels clacking against the tile, the eyes of strangers burning holes into her back. In the parking garage, she dialed Aaron, straight to voicemail. The bank's automated system answered her next call with cruel efficiency. This account has been closed by the primary cardholder. Her grip tightened on the phone until her knuckles ached. Both cards. Closed. This morning. Her own checking account? A pitiful balance of $43. Enough for gas and maybe 2 days of groceries. That was it. Her phone buzzed again. Lincoln Academy. Mrs. Bennett, this is Principal Harrison, came the formal voice. We've had another incident with Eli and Noah. There was a fight in the cafeteria. I'll need you to come in later this week to discuss their conduct. Jessica swallowed. Are they suspended? Not at this time, but continued behavior of this nature could lead to suspension, even expulsion. Please arrange a meeting with me by Friday. The line went dead. Jessica's chest heaved. Her credit lifeline was gone, and now the school was breathing down her neck. She slammed the phone onto the passenger seat and gripped the wheel so tightly her nails left crescents in the leather. When she picked up the boys, Eli climbed into the front seat with a storm brewing across his face. A dark bruise bloomed under his eye. Noah sat quietly in the back, clutching his backpack as if it could shield him from the world. What happened? Jessica demanded. Nothing, Eli muttered, turning toward the window. Noah's voice was small. They said we might get expelled. Jessica forced a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Don't worry about it. I'll handle it. But the words felt hollow. That evening, she found Aaron in the kitchen rinsing dishes. He moved with the calm precision of a man laying bricks, steady and silent. My cards didn't work, she snapped. The bank says they were closed. The school called about the boys. What's going on? Aaron set a plate gently into the rack. He dried his hands on a towel without looking at her. Answer me. Jessica's voice rose, sharp with fear. Aaron turned at last. His expression was unreadable, his mouth curved just slightly at the corner. Not anger, not grief. Something colder. Choices, he said softly. Choices have consequences. Jessica's breath caught. What does that mean? Did you... But Aaron had already walked past her, leaving the towel folded neatly on the counter. She stood frozen, her heart pounding. He hadn't denied it. He hadn't explained. He'd just left her with silence and a smile that chilled her blood. For the first time, Jessica wondered if her perfect life wasn't unraveling by accident, but by design. The next day, Jessica stormed inside, her sons trailing behind like lost shadows. Her mascara streaked down her cheeks, her hair frizzed from the Chicago wind. Eli's jaw was tight, his fists shoved into his pockets. Noah clung to his backpack, eyes wide and watery. She dropped her purse onto the granite counter with a thud that echoed through the kitchen. Everything is falling apart, she shrieked, her voice shrill with panic. The cards don't work, the school is threatening the boys, and you stand here doing nothing. Aaron didn't rise to meet her fury. He was at the sink, calmly drying a glass. His movements were slow, deliberate, like a surgeon preparing for an operation. He set the glass down and turned to face her. Nothing? His tone was soft, almost conversational. Jessica, I'm the architect of everything. She froze, the color draining from her face. What are you talking about? Aaron reached into the inside pocket of his jacket and pulled out a thick manila envelope. He placed it on the counter between them and slid it forward with 2 fingers. Jessica hesitated before snatching it up. Her eyes darted across the papers inside. Legal language, seals, signatures, divorce papers. Her voice cracked. No, you can't. I already did, Aaron interrupted, his tone flat and final. Filed and processed this week. The house, my company, my accounts, all protected in trusts set long before you. You'll get nothing. Jessica staggered backward, as though the papers themselves had struck her. You can't just throw us out like trash. I'm your wife. Aaron's eyes narrowed. You were my wife. Until you told me to get my own kids. Until you reminded me I wasn't a father. Eli's head shot up, his voice cracking. Wait. What's going to happen to us? For the first time, the bravado was gone. He looked younger, smaller, the tough edge stripped away. Aaron's jaw tightened. He looked at the boy, this child he had taken fishing, taught woodworking, tucked into bed. And the sorrow flickered in his gaze before it hardened again. You'll stay with your mother, like you wanted. I'm not your father. Noah whimpered, clinging to his brother's arm. But you read us stories. You said we were a family. Aaron's face was granite. Families don't mock the man who feeds them. Jessica collapsed into a chair, the papers spilling across the counter like fallen leaves. Aaron, please. I was angry. I didn't mean what I said. Aaron stepped closer, his voice now sharp as cut steel. You meant every word, and you wanted to see me as nothing more than a wallet, a placeholder for the man who abandoned you. Well, you've got what you wanted now. He's gone, Jessica. For good. Tears spilled down her cheeks as she clutched at the documents. Where will we go? I don't have money. I don't have work that pays enough. Aaron picked up his keys from the counter. That's not my problem anymore. Her voice broke into a wail. The boys need school. They'll be ruined. They've already been warned, Aaron said coolly. 3 fights last month, skipped classes, disrespecting teachers. Without my sponsorship, they'll be expelled within days. But that's on you, Jessica. You chose to raise them without discipline. You chose to sneer at the hand that built your safety net. Eli's face went pale. Noah buried his face in his brother's shoulder. Aaron moved to the doorway, pausing with one hand on the frame he had measured and cut himself years ago. He glanced back, his face unreadable. Tomorrow evening, he said quietly. Be gone. Take your sons, take your excuses. I want this house empty. Jessica's sobs filled the silence as he stepped out into the night. The door closed with a soft click that felt louder than thunder. The wrecking was complete. The foundation she had mocked was gone. And Aaron Bennett walked away, leaving them with nothing but the ruins. Yes, absolutely. We can make it tighter and simply state the adoption instead of lingering on the process. Here's a clean 300-word revision of segment 6 with that phrasing. 6 months later, Aaron adopted a 5-year-old boy from an orphanage on Chicago's South Side. The child's name was Samuel, a quiet boy with curious eyes and a gift for building things out of scraps and blocks. The first time Samuel called him Dad, Aaron felt something inside his chest mend that he thought would never heal. The house that had once been filled with ghosts now rang with laughter. Saturday mornings meant pancakes drenched in syrup, afternoons in the garage learning to measure and saw wood, evenings on the swing set in the garden. At night, Samuel curled against him with storybooks in hand, whispering, I'm glad you picked me. And Aaron would answer, voice thick with emotion, I'm glad you picked me back. For the first time in nearly 2 decades, Aaron's house wasn't a monument to loss. It was a home. Meanwhile, Jessica's world had collapsed into a cramped 2-bedroom apartment with peeling paint and thin walls. Eli, now 13, was already on suspension twice at his new school. Noah, 11, had grown sullen and withdrawn, left to himself while Jessica worked long shifts at a discount store. Their biological father was gone for good, and the man who once gave them everything had turned his back. At night, Jessica sometimes drove past Aaron's house. Through the windows she saw light, heard laughter, caught glimpses of a boy on the swing shouting, "Dad," with pure joy. Every time, the words sliced through her like glass. Aaron Bennett had finally built again. Not on compromise, not on manipulation, but on bedrock, love chosen freely. And this time, he knew the foundation would never crack. If you were Aaron, would you have done the same? Or was he too harsh on Jessica and her 2 sons? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more interesting and true-to-life stories.